It was not an auspicious start. Raining buckets when I woke up at 3 a.m. Overcast when I reached the peninsula. And, except for a special events crew, had the place all to myself. Even Ciappelloni was wondering if anyone would show. But pretty soon along came a Roddy, followed by a few more people. Then Deb Siner and Bill Cummings came by, and I breathed easier. By and by, a respectable crowd was on hand.
Could I miss it?
Including a wayward FIDO president or two.
I'm doing a rough week. Yeah. Very kindly.
Hey! How'd you sneak in? And why were we all there? We were there to remember Tony.
Guys, we're recording!
It's like a FIDO steering committee meeting. It's like what? You know? Hi, I'm the president. What?
I used to be president. Listen up.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. There's a couple of FIDO presidents here, so if you guys don't behave, we're gonna. What are we gonna do?
We have no consequences. That's no
We're here today to remember Tony Chiappelloni. And he was
Chiappelloni?
well,
Anthony.
Who was president of FIDO since you stopped in
2008.
So he kind of made the organization run, and actually run well in a funny sort of way for the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, it was kind of marvelous. Kind of marvelous, but I think
it is. I said to him, "How do you drink this stuff?" I know.
So what we're doing, I don't want to add any more structure to this than a short little speech, and then we can get on to the important stuff like play with our dogs. But we do have a person going around here with a camera, and what we want to capture. This is Gina.
Here.
Say hello to Gina.
Thank you, Gina.
What we want to get on videotape is some recollections of Tony. So as we proceed today, Gina's going to be going around, and occasionally we'll be tapping people on the shoulder, and we'll be asking for reminiscence. And then at some point in time, I'll put this on a deck, and we'll string it all together, and we'll send a copy to the family, and it'll also be a part of the FIDO archives, and we'll put it up on the website.
So we can watch it?
And maybe even people will watch it. Who knows?
And you can tap her on the shoulder if you want to say something. And please do not be shy.
Yeah. So that's the deal.
Because God knows Tony wasn't.
So no, Tony wasn't shot.
No.
So I mean, I just want to say that I miss Tony a lot. I'm now sort of trying to fill his shoes in a funny sort of way, and I'll figure out how to do that one of these days. But the important thing is to remember that Tony isn't here anymore.
His spirit's
But
with
his
us.
ideas are. I mean, there's still going to be the issue of off-leash, and we've got it good now. Life is good, but life can always turn in funny directions. And the important thing that Tony has left behind is this group, this organization, that if necessary and we got to fight for off-leash again, we're ready. We're here. We're together. There's something called FIDO. And as Mary pointed out to me personally earlier on, we've got Tony to thank for that. He kept it together, he kept it going, he kept it walking. He infuriated the hell out of most of us. But he did it. And that's the important thing. So now that he's gone, it's our job to carry it forward. That's it. I'm done. Yes, Mary.
I've already said one piece on camera, but for people who didn't know Tony very well, or who are relatively new to Off-leash, what we have here, we owe to Tony more than I can tell you. Before there was a FIDO, Tony was out here trying to get people to cooperate and behave and be responsible dog owners. And if you hadn't heard about it, several years ago there was a lawsuit against the city to end all off-leash in in all city parks. And FIDO fought that, and I was president of FIDO for apparently forever. But this lawsuit dragged on for years, and I can't tell you how many times I just wanted to say the hell with it. Just let it go, let it happen. I almost got a divorce over this whole off-leash thing. Tony kept me going. Tony would not let me quit. So the reason you weren't here with your dogs and not getting a $200 ticket for it is because of Tony, because he would not let us quit. And if you see people not picking up after their dogs, Gary's right, we have it now. We changed the city charter, which is unheard of. We changed the city charter to make it happen. They can change it back. If people are not responsible, if people don't remember how hard Tony and everybody fought for off-leash. So in Tony's memory, and for your dogs, remember Tony and all the work he put into keeping off-leash legal and fun in Prospect Park. Thank you.
FIDO, Tony was known as the mayor of the park. Yes. He was everybody's
I love your
business
crown.
and networking everybody to each other for idiosyncratic reasons and real reasons and fantastic reasons, and mostly to have friendship. And I actually want to do something very specific to his heart. My name is Audrey. I was here since the mid-90s, I guess, so that's when I met Tony. And he was the big part of my life, like he is for many of us who come here. But one of the things that he really loved was, and what he comforted himself with a lot in these last months and years, actually, of a lot of pain and suffering and a lot of need to keep living and fighting and keeping moving forth, was he really loved sitting and listening to the chants of the ancient Sanskrit prayers. He loved he wore the mala beads, and he was a man of sort of all faiths and made up faiths, like put it all together how you want to, which I really believe in. I think that that's the postmodern way. So in his honor, I do some yoga chanting, and I did that with him. And I just thought maybe I'd do it with you guys in his honor, and you can join me as you wish. This is a journey chant. It's a chant that's often sung when people make a big transition in life, whether it's toward death or whether it's toward another level of knowing. So however you want to participate in this, this is just an offering to Tony and to us, however we want to take it in, okay? Yeah? You up for it?
You up for it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll do it 3 times, and so it's repetitious, and you can join in. And okay? Should I do a call and response so that you can actually...
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Now do it just 2 more times together. Yeah, how many make it up as you go? Yeah,
Well,
go for it. Good. Okay. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Om. One more time. Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Komi ve bandanan. Amretiyor mukşiyam amretat. Mukşiyam amretat. Final sound. Om.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa, and Tony was a dear friend of mine. Last night as I prayed, I got a message from Tony, and one of the things he said to me was, come back and bring the dog, because we fought so hard for Off-leash. I was on the FIDO steering committee with Tony when Mary was president, and I wouldn't come to Prospect Park for many, many years, for over 25 years, because I almost got raped in the hospital, so I wouldn't come. And then when I had gotten my dog Coco, I met Tony, and Tony told me about Coffee Park and the steering committee and all the wonderful things about this community. And I owe so much to Tony for bringing me back and taking this fear away from me. I was so afraid to come back into the park. And Tony said, come on. And next thing I know, he had me on the steering committee. The next thing I know, every time I was out here, I had to get signatures and get the signatures, get the signatures, get the signatures, because we had such a big fight. And he used to say to me, Teresa, you getting the signatures? Go get those signatures. We need the signatures. We need the signatures. Yeah, Tony, I'm getting the signatures. We got hundreds and hundreds of signatures in order to get this. And I'm so happy to be here. I want everybody to know that, as far as I'm concerned, he's loved, and I love him, and miss him, and he will always be a memory in my heart. And just being here in the park this morning just brings him right back. His spirit's right here.
I've been living in Brooklyn for about 8 years. I came with this guy, that's Oraka, and I walked into the park on my first day, probably my first day in Brooklyn, and I met Tony. And Tony instantly befriended me. I always counted him and told him he was my first friend in Brooklyn. And I really miss him a lot. I really miss him a lot. I've heard a lot about his curmudgeonly side and his difficult side, and the side I got was a very sweet and true friend. And we've just been sitting here talking about how his spirit still feels to be in this park. I know he loved his dogs so much, and his dogs kept him going, and he gave so much back to all of us who shared that.
Remembering Tony, God, where do I start? I knew Tony for over 20 years. I knew him, I used to live in the neighborhood. I knew him from the neighborhood, but we never spoke because he struck me as being a bit odd. And it turns out he was actually a lot odd. But after we got a dog, I started coming here and I started actually talking to Tony, and he was just a fascinating, fascinating guy. And when we started FIDO in 1998, he was one of the original people to start FIDO, which is the dog club that tries to maintain off-leash privileges in Prospect Park. And I was president of FIDO for about 8 years, I think, because no one else wanted to do it. And Tony kept me going because it was not easy to do, as you know. It's not easy to do, and particularly we had a lawsuit that was lodged against the city that would have ended off-leash in all city parks permanently. And it was a very involved, a lot of involved legal action and arguments with people, all different user groups from the park. Everybody had an opinion about it. I almost got a divorce over this lawsuit, and Tony was the one who kept me going. Tony was the one who said, "You can't quit. You have to keep going. You have to keep going." And he just bugged me, bugged me and kept me going. And now, because of Tony, really, because of Tony, we have Off-leash in Prospect Park and other parks in the city where you can just show up and throw the ball for your dog. It's such a little thing, but it's such a huge thing. And it's all because of Tony, really. Because I could not have done it without him. None of us could have done this without Tony. Crazy as he was, and he was crazy. He always joked that we're all a bit crazy, but I have the paperwork to prove it.
Remembers how to turn on the camera,
And it is even running.
Hey, Tony, and very glad to be here. It seems like just yesterday that I came here for the very first time, and it's right. He's right there. I see him straight in front of me.
Okay. I couldn't see him.
And you're caring about me and everybody that came here with their dogs, and even without their dogs, just cared about everyone. I miss you. I miss you a lot. And but your memory is here forever.
Yeah.
Coming to the park about 10 years ago, I met Tony here. We'd meet, we'd chat. He had all sorts of things that he was interested in. Frequently there'd be groups of people here talking with him, and I'd come, and Tony would lean over to me and say, at the side of his mouth, "Oh, he's from York or something," just kind of to include me in the conversation. When we were alone, we started talking about various things. We both spent a certain amount of time in intensive care units, and we started talking about our experiences at that. And at some point, Tony said, "Did you have what kind of weird experiences you had?" And I had experiences essentially of communicating with entities that other people couldn't see, and Tony had a similar experiences that I interpreted these spiritually as if something was trying to communicate with me. Tony experienced it kind of psychologically. He said it was crazy stuff. When last time we saw Tony, we were in the hospice, and immediately as I came in to the room, there was a feeling that I was imposing on someone, but nobody else was there. Tony was. We tried to talk with him, but he was upset that why are they always moving dying people? And I couldn't understand this. And then he leaned over to me and said, "He's from Scandinavia." There was nobody else in the room. And so I realized at that point that Tony was now having one of these experiences where he was communicating with somebody who wasn't there in my spiritual tradition. These are the spirit guides that come to lead you through. And they often talk in terms of the journey as a journey, as a travel. And Tony had a very strong spirit guide there for him that I could sense. And we excused ourselves of this because I was not, it was not my place to horn in on this. Bye. And about like a day and a half after that, Tony was dead. Tony died. He was at the stage at that point where he wanted to die, but his body was fighting him. And it took a day and a half, I think, for him to defeat his body and actually move on. But I take from this that he has strong support where he went to, and I feel his presence in the park. But it's in a strange way. There was always an edge to Tony. If he was a little bit angry or something, or on edge, and I don't feel that edge anymore. I feel his presence all around here, but no edge. That Tony is actually at rest. And I just wanted to say that I don't know whether Tony would say it's crazy stuff, but it's comforting to me to believe that. Thank you.
So it's nice to see that my uncle had such a loving family here, and a loving family where we are, and a lot of things that people don't know about my uncle. He was a great pianist. He, taught me to be independent of my religion, which was a great thing. He was a good brother, a good uncle, and he was a great father to these dogs. I can't get over all these dogs. And they'll be missed. And I want to thank everybody.
My name's Carrie Beth, and
I'm David Kropkin.
And Tony was really special to us. And after the geese were killed here in the park in 2010, Tony was there at the vigil, and that's where I first met him. I don't know if you
I met him a little bit afterwards when I was starting Goose Watch, and I wanted to reach out to some of the dog owners that came to Rustic Park about being here in the morning, and everybody told me to go talk to Tony, and I did. And yeah, I met a hero. What can I tell you? Tony got involved. Tony stood up for the geese. He organized people. He helped communicate with the park. He supported everything that we did. I always remember some of the conversations that we had, and interesting debates about what to do and where to go. And
that's exactly Tony, not only with the geese, but after we started seeing a lot of injured wildlife in the park, we decided to start a group called Wildlife Across the Park, and Tony was really instrumental in that. He gave us advice. He really shared his love for the wildlife and how the dogs and the wildlife were connected, and what happened to the wildlife also happened to the dogs. We'd find fish hooks and line and all that stuff. And so Tony was a real
they're 4 years old.
What's the word I'm looking for?
It's great to have him on our side.
Yeah, and he had a heart of gold, and we're just really grateful that he was part of our lives and helped us along with what we're trying to achieve.
So one is named
Tony, we love you.
And one is named Astro,
Tony, we'll miss you. Think of you every time we come here.
Evidently.
Hi Tony, I'm Audrey. When I met Tony, it was me and Annie walking in the park with Scaramouche and Cherub. Actually, just Scaramouche, and then we found Cherub. And Tony was walking with Daisy, and then pretty soon he got Fanny, and when Daisy died, seemed like it would be impossible to live without her, but Fanny was the great embodiment of love that was so healing for Tony. And we spent years walking into the park together, loving each other and healing each other, and inventing a friendship together. And so from myself and Annie, who's not here today, but who would want to give love to Tony, and who wrote a book that Tony read this book right before he died. It was probably his last novel. and L is for lion. And it was his way of reflecting upon his own Italian-American childhood and really getting in touch with his own stories, reliving some of them painful and some of them joyful, and seeing how his path had unfolded. This book really took him through that process. He identified so strongly with it and would say to Annie in phone calls, "You've written my story. I relate so deeply to this story." And it was that Italian-American voice that was like just able to be honest about the pain of the pressures of the Italian-American childhood. And Tony came out then and told me a lot of stories that he had never told me before. The darker stories about his teen years and growing up as a young man. And to that Tony, that young Tony that I never knew, I really sent a lot of healing love because there was a lot of pain there. And I love him. I talk to him every day, even though he's not physically here, because he's a big part of my heart, no matter what. And I spent a lot of time in trying to give him some healing attention in these last years. And that also was to witness a very tender part of him and a very sad part of him that needed to process what it was to die, what it was to leave his dogs, and to trust that the world would take care of them. So thank you to those who are taking care of them. And love to Tony and love to his family, all of us, all of the dogs. Thank you.
I hate to interrupt for something procedural, but I just wanted to say one or two things. First of all, there's a guest book. Write, tell me your anecdotes. This is going to go to his sister and his family. Draw pictures, write poems, the big book, lots of room in it, please. And I'm going to put in some pictures afterwards. If anybody has pictures they'd like me to put in, you can email me, debsigner@yahoo, or put it on the FIDO or talk to Gary. The second thing, and somebody else I think was going to be here, but I wanted to talk about money for a minute. We want to do a memorial for Bob. We are not sure what yet. My personal idea was for a bench right here in the Peninsula Meadow, because we got nothing here. It's not like Park Slope. No benches.
It's a memorial for Tony.
What did I say?
Bob.
Bob. I was thinking of the dog. Because Bob and Tony were like this. So, and a matter of fact, I have here already a check from his sister Diana for $1,000 to start this memorial.
Woo!
So we're not talking nickels and dimes, sweetie pie.
But we'll take it.
We'll take it. And we'll see how much we get and whether we're going to do the bench or some trees. Or there are 3 or 4 other ideas.
We can get a tombstone. A tombstone?
Oh, tombstones. I prefer to commemorate life. Anyway, there's also, you can put money in the hat and sign your name in the amount. It's over here on the table. And there's also, there'll be a special account just for Tony money, so that it is separate from the rest of FIDO money. I'm not commingling this at all.
Yeah,
It'll be on the website. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
And you know, Tony was a dear friend. When I met him, he was this weird old guy in the park, but he was a weird old guy with great ideas. And the more you knew about him, the better. I just found out yesterday he was apparently an excellent jazz piano player. His niece tells me, you know, I did. But when he was in the hospital the last couple of weeks, he called me at home and he talked to me, and I realized what he was telling me was his legacy. He was terrified about losing the off-leash hours. He wanted FIDO to be an all-park thing, not just North. So I'm just passing those messages on, and a lot of other people want to take a turn, so I'll stop now. Okay? Thank you.
This is what we do it for. This is why we are. So our canine companions can start the day being free to be themselves. It's fitting, I think, to give Tony the last word, to close out this piece with a videographic ghost. Tony, back when he was alive and in the round and recalling for us his naming of him.
One day I went there and I came upon like a little mound on top of a mountain, a pedestal with a guy's head up top, and there was regular tombstones surrounding the pedestal. So I go up to see what it is, and I read the inscription, and it says Eliza Howe Jr. He invented the sewing machine in 1834. But the thing about the regular tombstones was that on top of them they would have brother, sister, mother, father, and then they would have their initials and date of birth and date of death, and that was it. That was the only inscriptions. So I'm walking away, and out of the corner of my eye, I look behind the pedestal, and there's one lone tombstone with writing on it. So I walk over there, and on top of the stone it says, Fanny, died December 10th, 1881. And on the epitaph it says, only a dog, do you say, sir critic? Only a dog with the truth I prize, the truest love I won in living, lay in the deeps of her limpid eyes. Across the winter nor heat of summer would fail if my footsteps led, and memory holds dear in his treasure casket the name of my darling who lie dead. And that moved me a lot. You know, my first reaction, I got all teary-eyed. My second reaction was the dog was the only one who got an epitaph. But that name stuck, so when I found this dog, I named her Fanny in remembrance of that dog.